All right, good morning, everyone. This is a meeting of the CMAQ and TAP Project Selection Committee. My name is Doug Ferguson. Sarah, you want to move the slide? We're having a little bit of slide issues, so just give us a second. All right. Just as a reminder to everybody, this meeting is being broadcast through Zoom and is being recorded. And am I really loud or is it just me? Okay. All right. It just feels like I'm really loud. All right. So we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves. As I mentioned before, Doug Ferguson, CMAP.
Heather Mullins, the Regional Transportation Authority.
Grant Davis with CDOT.
Tom Rickard with Kane County, representing the counties.
Chris Schmidt, Illinois Department of Transportation.
And in the audience.
Terry Dixon, CMAP.
Heidi Lichtenberger, Kane Kendall, Council of Mayors.
Drew Duffin, McHenry County Council of Mayors.
Brian Larson, Northwest Municipal Conference.
Amy Lee, CMAP.
Eric Tornado, Northwest Municipal Conference.
And staff over on the right.
Russell Petroviak, CMAP.
Gamma Dub, CMAP.
Megan Swanson, IDOT.
Henrietta Brown, CMAP.
John Hodsma, CMAP.
Sarah Stolpe, CMAP.
Evan Hayes, CMAP.
And Kama, could you read off who's online?
Yes, we've got Angela King Ramsey, Kurt Grass, Daniel Thomas, Darwin Burkhart, Dawn Dina, Jackie Forbes, Joe Surdam, Mark Kane, Laura Fedak, Leslie Rower, and Paul Schneider. And Kendra Johnson is joining now.
Great, thank you. So there are no agenda changes or announcements. Are there any announcements from any other members of the committee? All right, hearing none. We'll move on to the meeting minutes from October 31st. Do I have a motion for approval?
Tom Rickard motions to approve.
Thank you. Second.
Grant Davis, second.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the minutes as presented? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes pass. Thank you. Program monitoring 4.0. So included in your packet today were programming status sheets, incorporating the new program of projects. Obviously, if there's any questions, we can answer those, but feel free to reach out if there's any issues with what's presented. And then the CMAQ programming and summary and obligation goal. It's not on here, but we ended federal fiscal year 2023 with just under $80 million obligated in funds. So that's short of our annual appropriation of $119 million. There was an action back at the end of August where the unobligated balance was transferred by IDOT into under funding sources to try to spend down the state's federal unobligated balance so that funds could be made available with reappro on the federal side. So that raises my issue. Like you'll notice the obligation goal being $255 million. This is our annual appropriation plus the unobligated balance. I don't expect us to get to 255, but if we're not at least spending down on our federal appropriation, our annual appropriation amount, and then eating into the unobligated balance, we're going to start putting ourselves back to where we were like 2006, 2007, when the program had some issues. That being said, staff is already thinking about like what we need to do. CDOT does have a large project that they're moving through the FTA system. So come like May, June, if we're still like well short of our federal appropriation level, we may start moving projects out so that they can transfer additional funds to FTA for the state and lake project. Grant every couple of months sends me an email asking if we can transfer more. So and that project's getting ready to kick off here soon. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's planning on advertising it this year, and starting construction next year.
All right. So we are taking steps to try to reduce the unobligated balance. We don't want to hold up other projects, but obviously if projects aren't moving forward, and it's challenging because when projects get authorized, the funding goes into advanced construction status. So that in and of itself does not move off that doesn't obligate the funds on the federal side. It needs to be converted, which doesn't typically happen until a bill is submitted to IDOT and then they convert it. So that's the challenge that we're always going to have. We do have a little over 18 million currently in advanced construction. So that's not enough. I mean, even if we convert all of that, we need other projects to get going and into the pipeline as quickly as possible. So with that, are there any questions on the programming status sheet or in obligation goals?
When you say CMAP staff would have to start figuring out something to do with that, like, I guess I wasn't here in 06. What would that start to look like?
Well, that's when we had discussions. That's when we implemented the deferral process of moving funds into MYB for projects that have hit delays. I know sometimes projects, whether it be like right of way or agreement process, they get delayed, but we give from when projects are originally programmed, they get 3 years to obligate those funds before we consider them for deferral. So it's not like one and done, like whatever year you're programmed in, if you don't make it, then we defer you. There's several kicks at the cat, if you will. But that being said, if all the projects in the program are all doing that same process of not meeting like their annual, what they're programmed for, then that's where we get into problems.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, we'll move on to the project change requests. John Hasma is going to present those. John?
Good morning, committee members. So included in your packets today are 4 project change requests for consideration. So 2 of those are cost increases and 2 are requesting schedule advancements. So get into this first request here. It's a cost increase from Lincolnwood for the Toohey Cicero Ave intersection improvement project. The project currently has programmed $328,000 CMAQ for right of way in 2024 and $1,776,000 CMAQ for construction that's also in 2024. The sponsor is requesting a cost increase of $91,000 CMAQ for design engineering in 2024. One thing to note here is that this is the second cost increase for the project. It originally requested a $50,000 increase in 2020, and that was approved. The project right now has $167,992 CMAQ authorized for design engineering. However, due to processing delays and additional environmental studies required, engineering costs have just been higher than anticipated. We did go back and re-rank this project among intersection improvements projects included in the 2020 to 2024 program, and it remained second ranked project out of 24 total. Staff's recommending approval of the requested cost increase of the $91,000 CMAQ for design engineering in 2024. One additional thing to note here is that the construction phase did have a sunset of 2023. So with it exceeding that year and it not having a target letting until 2025, staff plans to defer that phase of the project. Moving on here to the second cost increase. This comes from Cook County for the Old Orchard Road from Eden's Expressway to Skokie Boulevard project. This project has $6,436 CMAQ for construction and $1,526,000 CMAQ for right of way, and both those have been obligated. The sponsors requesting a cost increase of $2,624,606 CMAQ for construction in 2024. The project was on the September letting of this year, and the low bid amount came in higher than anticipated. So after re-ranking this project among intersection improvement projects in the 2016 to 2020 program, it dropped from the 10th to 13th ranked project. That's out of 19 total, and it dropped below 2 projects that were unfunded. One of those being funded in a later programming cycle. So staff's recommending consideration of this requested cost increase of the $2,624,606 CMAQ for construction in 2024. And just to add some context here, the reason for this recommendation is due to it falling below an unfunded project. However, that's also comparing a 2023 project cost against a 2015 estimate. So we have no way of telling what the project cost would be today, but there is good reason to believe it would likely end up being more, which would impact that unfunded projects ranking. The other thing I'll note here is that still ahead of 6 other unfunded projects, and it has already been let. It's obligated all its funds it has had on it. So there isn't any question about the project readiness or advancement on this. So the next 2 requests are the schedule advancements, with the first one being from CTA Red Line Extension. This project has 120 million carbon reduction programmed across 2026, 2027, and 2028 for construction. The sponsor is requesting to advance 30 million carbon reduction from 2027 to 2024. And this request is the sponsor's complete advance work to accelerate the project. And staff's recommending approval of the requested schedule change to advance that 30 million carbon reduction from 2027 to 2024. And finally, the last request here comes from Prospect Heights Metro Station and Pace Route access improvements. The project is currently programmed for $113,766 CMAQ in 2024 for phase 2 engineering, and $1,382,332 CMAQ in 2025 for construction and construction engineering. The sponsor is requesting to advance the $1,382,332 CMAQ for construction and construction engineering from 2025 to 2024. The project has final plans submitted to IDOT and is on target to be on the January letting in early 2024. With this project, the reason for it not already having the phase 2 engineering obligated is because it's received section 1440 approval, and that allows eligible projects to proceed with engineering work before they have authorization. So staff's recommending approval of the requested schedule change to advance the CMAQ construction and construction engineering from 2025 to 2024. And with that, that's concludes the report of the 4 requested project changes.
Thanks, John. If I could just add in with the Cook County project, understanding that we are not recommending approval, but just consideration, I would add that's because of the project that it dropped below. However, this is a project that's going to construction. We just talked about not having funds obligated, and this is a case where this project to proceed to actual construction could definitely use these funds. It's also part of a larger project that extends all the way to Harms Road, I believe. Is that correct, or Woods?
The total limits is, Woods.
Right. That was a portion of the project that they took over from IDOT and are receiving funding from IDOT for that portion of the project. So while we are only recommending consideration, it only makes sense at this point in time to allow it to approve the cost increase for this from a staff perspective, to get funding moving forward on a project that was selected. So are there any other questions on the changes as presented?
Just sort of a question on this CTA red line extension, the carbon reduction funds that you have.
Yep.
Programmed here. Being that that's sort of a new program, I assume you're going through the same channels with District 1 and central office that you would go through for CMAQ to sort of alert them that you've earmarked that for carbon reduction funding.
As far, I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear your.
Sure. I mean, just being that it's such a new program, I mean, I'm looking at the totals for this project alone that you have earmarked as carbon reduction funding.
Yep. And
just understanding that the total for that program for the entire state over the 5 years is 225 million. Just curious, like who, I've been gone for 12 weeks.
Yep.
And maybe this is something that I need to talk more internally about, but just sort of asking the question, we're moving $30 million up. You take 225 million, divide that over 5 years. Just curious about.
Right. So as part of carbon reduction, there was the set aside for metro areas.
Okay.
So it was included as part, we programmed these new funds as part of the most recently approved program. However, the funding started in 2 years ago. And so there's been a backlog of funding.
That makes sense.
And so using FHW's FEMA system, they have it sliced out like how much we're getting. So we have currently about 55 million of carbon reduction funds that are unobligated in the FEMA system. So
Very good.
that's how we're accommodating this request to move.
Not a
ahead.
programmer at all, so that really is helpful. I
Yeah,
appreciate
because
it.
it's only roughly about 20 million a year that we're receiving, but like we've got 3 years of funding.
Backlog. Right. I appreciate you spelling that out.
Yep,
for
not a
guys like
problem.
me. Thank you.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, I'm just, couple quick comments. I, appreciate the recommendations. I think that these are all good projects. The Cook County project with the 2.6 million, this is at 50% federal. We've talked about, as you just mentioned, the overall cost increases. When you look at just some of the cost increases we've seen in the past year, this is very reasonable at the 50% and a good project. And so all of this, the two projects advancing CMAQ funds, et cetera, I think that this is a good recommendation, and I would motion to approve the 4 projects. And
I think that was Chris Schmidt seconding. Thank you. Any other further discussion? All right. So with that, all those in favor?
I
Any opposed? All right, the changes are approved. Thank you. All right, moving on. So we just ended our program development of the 2022 to 2020, or wait, 2024 to 2028 program. And we've already started thinking about, sorry, on the agenda, it's incorrect. It says 24 to 28. It should be 26 to 30. Nope, I am looking at the wrong thing. My apologies. It does say 26 to 28. It should be 26 to 30. But we've started looking at like a development schedule for the next cycle. And if we go to the next slide, Sarah. We've put together a meeting schedule for 2024. With that, this is based upon some draft meeting dates for the Transportation Committee. So we don't have these finalized yet. We're just making sure that we're covering. The September 12th meeting is only if we need it for methodology changes, and I'll explain that in a second. But we will definitely send these out so that everybody has it, since not everybody's here at the meeting. But this is what we're potentially looking at for our meeting schedule. Next slide. So we are moving up the call for projects in the next round. And there's a couple different reasons we're doing this. One, so that we're making decisions before the change of the federal fiscal year and not getting final approval in the new fiscal year. So we'd be looking for final approval of the next program in June versus October. That's when the MPO Policy Committee meets before October. But we would be opening the call for projects in October of next year for the 26 to 30 development schedule. And this is kind of what we're envisioning it looking like, where the call would close at the end of November, beginning of December, and we'll have to look at, like, I know that's coming in the middle of the holidays, so we may add an extra week or two in there just so that it doesn't hurt anybody from filling out the application materials. And then staff would spend a couple of months analyzing the applications. We'd be coming back to this committee looking for a draft program to be released in April for public comment, with then the final approval happening in June. So before I move on, any kind of questions that the committee has on this change the cycle? We would add that the local STP program through the Council of Mayors is following the same development schedule now. Most of the councils have calls out currently for their STP allotments. But with that, any questions on kind of what we're thinking here?
Is this I'm again, sorry, I feel like I'm the new guy. The PLs have gotten this information a little bit before right now, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is something we've kind of been talking about over the last, like, I would say, 6 to 8 months, like with this committee. I understand you've been absent, so yeah. Hopefully this is not a surprise to anybody but Chris.
Doug, my only comment would be, like, I would encourage for this and STP to try to be as early in October as possible. And I think moving it into first or second week of December is a good idea, just because it's a lot of municipalities' budget seasons at this time, and with the holiday, a lot of stuff going on. So I'm not opposed. I like the idea of moving it up, just making sure there's enough cushion there.
Yeah, and that, I think that's what we're thinking. We didn't want to give actual dates at this point in time, just in case, like, so that no one like starts marking them on their calendar, and then we get in and then we give different dates and they're like, wait, these aren't the dates you originally gave us. But yeah, we're well aware of, like, I mean, got Thanksgiving coming at the end of November, and then people start moving into December, and that holiday season can get a little bit tight. Next slide. So with that being said, as generally staff is happy with where we're at as far as the criteria that we use to evaluate projects and our methodology, but we always want to make sure that we're not missing something. So I just wanted to kind of open it up, and this doesn't have to be something that we have to answer today. If you have ideas or thoughts that you would like staff to look into, send me an email, give me a call, and different things that over the next few months that staff can dig into and investigate potential changes. But are there any that you have off the top of your head at this point in time? What?
You guys really don't want to mess with it again?
Well, I mean, there's nothing saying we have to mess with it. Like, I mean, no, so that's why we're making sure that, like, there's nothing that, obviously we're going to work on updating the data that we use, but that's not a criteria change. I mean, like, right, well, hearing none. But like I said, reach out to us in the next like few months and if there's something that comes up. I know in the past, we've made changes to equity. Obviously, we'll be making sure that whatever kind of is the thought process on that, like that we're staying in line with that, but we're not seeing anything at the moment. But with that, I'll move on to 7.0, other business. Is there any other business that committee members would like to bring forward today? All right. Hearing none, move on to 8.0, public comment. We did not receive any public comments written in advance. Is there anybody? Nope. And we didn't get anybody in the audience. If there's somebody online that wishes to address the committee, please unmute yourself and identify yourself. Kim, are you seeing anybody online? Give it a couple seconds. All right. Well, with that, the next meeting. So we do have a meeting scheduled for November 30th, which I understand is a tight time frame to this meeting, but we wanted to make sure that if there were project change requests for the spring lettings that sponsors could get in. At this point in time, we don't have anything. If we don't have anything to bring, we're going to cancel this meeting. But wanted to make sure that any change requests were being accommodated. All right. And with that, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.